My card got declined over an $18 prescription. Standing at the pharmacy counter, I tried it twice, apologized to the pharmacist like it was somehow my fault, and stepped outside to figure out what happened. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from my husband, asterisk, accounts locked. Don't bother going up to Birch Lake this summer. Mom wants it to herself. We'll talk when you're calmer. Asterisk, I read it 3 times, standing right there in that parking lot. And the strange thing was, I wasn't panicking. Because Ethan had just made a mistake he didn't even know he'd made. 8 years ago, he signed something. He forgot all about it. I never did. My name's Nora Hale. I'm 47, married to Ethan for 22 years, and I run my own design-build firm, Hale and Company. I'm a licensed contractor. I've built houses with these two hands, poured concrete, hung drywall, argued with subcontractors twice my size and won. Ethan sells commercial insurance, and if you ask anyone who's ever worked with him, they'll tell you his personal motto: always read before you sign. He says it to clients, to our daughter, to basically anyone signing anything within earshot. Funny, the things that come back around later. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was steady. The kind of steady you stop questioning after 2 decades. That morning had been completely ordinary. Client calls, a coffee going cold on my desk, our daughter Ivy home from college for the summer, still asleep at 11 like only a 20-year-old can manage. I never imagined that by lunchtime, I'd be standing in a parking lot reading a text that would end up rewriting everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Let me tell you about Birch Lake, because you need to understand what that place meant before you understand what happened to it. I designed and built that house myself, back when my firm was small and I needed something to prove I actually knew what I was doing. It became everything after that. Ivy learning to kayak off our dock. Sunday morning pancakes on the porch, the screen door banging shut every 5 minutes. The summer Ethan surprised me and renewed our vows right there on that same dock, both of us barefoot, laughing at how unprepared we were for the moment. That house wasn't just a purchase. It was proof I could build something that outlasted a slow season, a hard winter, a bad year. My accountant had insisted years back that I keep it titled under my company, separate from our regular life, liability, insurance, the usual boring stuff. I never thought twice about it. I called Ethan from that pharmacy parking lot, engine not even started yet. He picked up on the third ring, using that clipped, businesslike tone he saves for clients he doesn't like. You locked my account over an $18 refill, I said. It's not about the refill, he said. It's about you making decisions about that house like it's only yours. It is only mine, Ethan. You know that. A pause, longer than I liked. It stopped feeling that way a long time ago, he said. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, replaying that sentence. Not our house. Not family house. Just, it stopped feeling that way. Like ownership was something you could feel your way out of. I told him we'd talk when he was ready to be honest with me, and I hung up before he could say anything that would make me cry in a parking lot. I wasn't going to give him that. At home, I pulled the old Birch Lake folder out of the filing cabinet. LLC paperwork, insurance binders, the original construction permits, all of it still smelling faintly like the cedar shelving up at the lake. My phone rang before I'd even opened the first folder. Carol. My mother-in-law doesn't call to chat. She calls with an agenda, and this time the agenda was guilt. You've always kept that house at arm's length from this family, she said. I built that house with my own 2 hands, Carol, I said, keeping my voice level. Arm's length isn't the phrase I'd use. She let out the sigh she's been perfecting for 30 years, then added, almost as an afterthought, Ethan's got a lot on his plate right now. This family could use everyone pulling together. I said something polite and got off the phone. But that sentence, a lot on his plate, sat in my chest the rest of the afternoon like a splinter I couldn't quite find. Ivy came downstairs around 6, hair still damp from a shower, and dropped onto a bar stool asking if we had anything for dinner. I was distracted, still turning Carol's comment over, when she said something that stopped me cold. Is Dad okay? I heard him on the phone at Maddie's the other night, super stressed, talking about covering some shortfall for Rich and needing the lake house numbers. I asked her, carefully, not to sound alarmed, what exactly she'd heard. I don't know what it means, Mom, she said. I just know he sounded scared. Not annoyed. Scared. I stood there with a cutting board in my hand, and something shifted. This wasn't about Carol wanting a family summer. This was about money. Money I couldn't see, moving somewhere I didn't know about. And Rich Dolan's name, attached to Ethan's shortfall, wasn't a coincidence I could keep ignoring. I decided right then it was time to call Marcus. Not to vent. To actually understand where I stood. Marcus Reyes has been our family attorney for almost 15 years, and he's the kind of man who chooses every word like it costs him something. I called him that night after Ivy went to bed. Ethan reached out to me a few days ago, he said, carefully. Hypothetical questions. About adding a spouse to an LLC-held property. About whether a lake house could be used as collateral if it were, his words, brought into the marriage properly. My stomach dropped. He wants to use the lake house for money, I said. I can't say for certain yet, Marcus said. But that's the direction his questions were pointing. I told him he'd need your written consent and a full title review before anything could move forward. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, and felt the floor tilt slightly under a room I'd thought was level. Everything Carol said, everything Ivy overheard, it all pointed the same direction now. This was never about a family summer. It was about leverage. Pull the full title history, I told Marcus. I want to know exactly where I stand. Marcus called back 2 days later, and I could hear it in his voice before he even said anything, that particular stillness lawyers get when they've found something that actually matters. I need you to sit down for this, he said. Do you remember the refinance on the house in town 8 years ago? I did, vaguely. A stack of papers, a rushed closing, Ethan grumbling about signing his name so many times his hand cramped. The lender required any other real property held by either of you to be clearly separated from the marital debt, Marcus said. Since Birch Lake was already under your LLC, Ethan signed a quitclaim deed. He waived any personal ownership claim to that property. It's recorded with the county. It's permanent. I didn't say anything for a long moment. He signed this himself, Nora, Marcus said. Right here, on page 4. His signature. I actually laughed, quiet and a little sad. He tells people to read before they sign, I said. He says it in his sleep. Whatever Ethan thought he was building, a claim, some leverage, a quiet way to fold that house into his mess with Rich, it had already been impossible for 8 years. He'd signed it away himself, in a stack of papers he never bothered to read closely. I drove up to Birch Lake alone the next morning, no real plan, just needing to be there. The house was empty, quiet in that particular way lake houses get in the middle of the week. I walked through it slowly. Ivy's height marks penciled inside the hall closet door, years of them, stacked up the frame. The dock Ethan and I repainted every spring, arguing over whether the gray was too dark. I sat down on the edge of that dock and I didn't cry right away. I just watched the water for a while. Then I did cry, and it surprised me, because it wasn't really about the house. Marcus had already made it clear I wasn't losing that. I was crying because I finally understood I'd already lost something else, the assumption that Ethan and I were building toward the same future. That we were even working from the same set of facts. My phone buzzed on the dock beside me. Priya, the realtor, returning a call I'd made weeks earlier, on a whim, before any of this started. I let it go to voicemail at first. I sat there a minute longer, watching a heron work the shallows on the far shore, and something in me settled. This was never going to be about punishing Ethan. It wasn't about winning an argument, or proving a point to Carol. It was about protecting the one thing that was entirely legally mine from getting pulled into a mess I never agreed to and hadn't even been told about. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was trying to stop being collateral damage in a situation he'd kept hidden from me for who knows how long. I called Priya back. This time, I wasn't hesitating. Over the next week, I quietly built a team. Marcus confirmed in writing that I had sole unencumbered authority to sell, no consent required, no claim to contest. Dana Kim, a financial advisor Marcus trusted, sat with me and walked through our full financial picture, something I realized I hadn't looked at closely in years. Partway through, she paused on a string of transfers from our joint account into Ethan's personal one, going back almost a year. "I'm not saying this means anything specific," she said gently, "but you should know it's there." I didn't say Rich's name out loud. I didn't need to. Priya, meanwhile, started a quiet, off-market listing process. No sign in the yard, no open house, just a short list of serious buyers she trusted. "You don't have to decide tonight," Dana told me before I left her office. "You just have to know exactly what's true before you decide anything." I already knew. I gave Priya the go-ahead the next morning. The next 2 weeks moved fast and quiet at the same time. Priya brought 2 serious buyers through within days. Birch Lake real estate doesn't sit long in a market like that one. A strong offer came in, and Marcus finalized the paperwork confirming, in black and white, that Ethan had zero legal standing to contest any part of it. Meanwhile, at home, Ethan was acting like the whole thing had simply evaporated. He came home with my favorite Thai takeout one night, unlocked my account without a word of explanation, mentioned casually that maybe we'd do a lake weekend with his mother later in the summer. "See?" he said at dinner, refilling my wine like a peace offering. "We're fine. This whole thing blew over." I smiled, said something non-committal, and passed him the rice. I wasn't lying to him. I just wasn't volunteering information he hadn't given me the courtesy of asking for. Inside, I knew it hadn't blown over at all. It had just gone quiet, the way storms do right before they land. Closing day was set for that Friday. Ethan had no idea. That same Friday, Ethan drove up to Birch Lake, not for a family weekend, it turned out, but to meet Rich and a private lender there, planning to casually show off the property as family collateral, some reassurance for people he owed money to. His key didn't work. There was a moving truck in the driveway that wasn't his. He called me 4 times before I picked up. "You can't just sell our house," he said, his voice cracking somewhere between fury and disbelief. "It was never our house, Ethan," I said, steady. "You made sure of that yourself. 8 years ago." "What are you even talking about?" "The refinance. The quitclaim deed. You signed it, Ethan. I have the copy, if you want to see your own handwriting." Silence on the line, long enough that I actually checked to see if the call had dropped. "The house is under your LLC," he finally said, quieter now. "It's been under my LLC the whole time. And you signed away any claim to it, in a stack of papers you never read. You've told people to read before they sign for as long as I've known you." He didn't say anything else. I think that was the moment it actually landed. He came home that night, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, he didn't defend himself. He just sat down at the kitchen table and told me the truth. He'd been quietly funding Rich's failing brewpub for over a year. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones, until he was in too deep to admit it to anyone, especially me. He'd hoped the lake house could buy him a little time, quietly, without me ever having to know he'd made the mistake in the first place. "I didn't want you to think I'd failed at something," he said. I looked at him for a long moment. "I could have survived you failing, Ethan," I said. "I couldn't survive you hiding it from me." He didn't argue. He just nodded, like some part of him had known that all along and had been waiting for someone else to finally say it out loud. That was 3 months ago. Ethan started financial counseling, and he's been paying down what's left of Rich's debt through an actual structured plan instead of secret transfers and locked accounts. I haven't merged our finances back the way they were, and I'm not in a hurry to. We're rebuilding, slowly, on honesty this time instead of assumptions. Last weekend we sat on a rented dock at a different lake, feet in the water, no agenda between us. Do you regret selling it? He asked. Sometimes, I told him. But I don't regret why. I still think about Birch Lake more than I probably should. Ivy's height marks on that closet door, the dock we painted every spring. I honestly still wonder sometimes if I could have handled the whole thing differently. So I'd genuinely love to know, if you found out your spouse had signed away rights to something years ago and completely forgotten about it, would you have done what I did? Let me know down in the comments. I really do read them. Here's what I keep coming back to. Ethan didn't lose that house because I wanted to punish him. He lost it 8 years earlier, in a stack of papers he never read closely enough. I just happened to notice before he did. If there's one thing I'd want you to take from this, it's that, read what you sign, know your own finances, protect what you've built. Not out of suspicion, out of self-respect. The things we don't pay attention to are so often the things that end up protecting us or exposing us later on. If this story reminded you to actually go read the fine print somewhere in your own life, I'd really appreciate it if you hit like and subscribed. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.